Good evening and welcome to BBC Newsline. More than £31 million is needed for the health service here to start treating patients who've been waiting a year or more on hospital waiting lists. The Health Minister says she's confident her long-awaited plan can be rolled out once an executive is in place after the election. BBC Newsline can reveal that £1 million has already been allocated to the private sector. Here's our health correspondent, Mary-Louise Connolly.
Hiya, how are you?
Hello, Minister.
Nice to see you again.
Good to see you too.
Wearing her health hat, Michelle O'Neill says she remains committed to tackling hospital waiting lists and is confident the problem can be resolved.
And Professor Bingo is sitting in on this.
With no new money, this seems purely an aspirational plan. The goal is, if it were to be implemented, that it would ensure that anyone waiting 12 months to either see a consultant or start treatment by the end of next month, they would have treatment completed by the end of March 2018.
I want to be continuing with this work. I will continue this work. I decided to publish this plan today because it's clearly where we need to be. We need to deal with these waiting lists.
But do you
and I've
accept
clearly
when
said
I say
that
surely without the 31 million actually being in place, this could be criticised or being described as being a fantasy document?
absolutely agree that money needs to be triggered as soon as possible to provide for this additional activity. That's why we need to deal with the public are now going to have their say about who will govern in the future.
In the meantime, the lists are getting longer. Over 243,000 people are waiting to either see a consultant or start treatment, something we have reflected on BBC Newsline over the past 12 months.
You need somebody to run the damn thing like a business.
Some days it's very painful, I can hardly walk.
Going on for 2 years now. It's put our lives on hold. It's been devastating for my family.
This County Antrim man waited 14 months on cataract treatment. He's convinced it took a letter of complaint to make people finally sit up and notice.
In the end, I began to doubt that I maybe had dropped off the waiting list. And it was a matter of getting my situation taken seriously. I simply wanted information and movement.
While it's not included in today's plan, I understand that at the start of February, £1 million was allocated so patients could start their treatment in the independent sector. Hospital staff say that money should have been invested in the health service instead.
While this plan looks good on paper and will offer some hope to patients on waiting lists, without an executive or a budget in place, it's on paper where it will remain for now. Mary-Louise Connolly, BBC Newsline.
The Minister's announcement was welcomed by the DUP. However, they said Sinn Féin's decision to call an election would inevitably impact on patients. The UUP described Michelle O'Neill's announcement as a pre-election stunt. The SDLP said it was good to finally see a plan, but that it was time to put it into action. The Alliance Party said that while they welcomed a strategy in place, they were concerned about where the funding will come from. An inquest into the death of a 22-year-old man with mental health problems has heard that the initial police response to him going missing amounted to a catalogue of errors. James Fenton left a ward in the Ulster Hospital in July 2010. His body was discovered in the grounds 10 weeks later. Both current and former police officers gave evidence today, as Will Leach now reports.
A derelict building and grounds, searched in pitch darkness. Torbank School was awaiting demolition when the two officers arrived, searching with handheld torches. They'd been told it was the last place 22-year-old James Fenton had been seen after leaving the hospital. That information turned out to be wrong and wasn't rechecked, and both men now wish they'd been directed to the area where his body was eventually found 10 weeks later. One constable told the inquest, "I wish I had searched that area. It's a matter of regret to me that I didn't." His colleague later added, "Nothing would have given us greater pleasure than to have located Mr. Fenton that evening." But the coroner was concerned about the questions the officers asked when they left the school grounds and went to speak to hospital security and ward staff. He put it like this. He said two constables searching in the dark was like looking for a needle in a haystack. But he added, the needle in the haystack is easier to find if you ask the right questions. Later, the court heard from a retired inspector who'd been the most senior officer on duty in the hours after James Fenton went missing. She agreed there'd been a catalogue of errors and that she hadn't taken the necessary action. As several police officers gave evidence, the coroner had some blunt questions. It became clear that it wasn't until hours after James Fenton's disappearance that the police finally initiated wider proactive searches. But during that first full day, vital for any missing person, nothing was found. The inquest continues. Will Leach, BBC Newsline, at Belfast Coroner's Court.
The BBC has seen emails which show farmers urged government officials to delay cutting payments on the RHI heating scheme. It came at a crucial point in 2015 when officials became aware of an urgent need to stop cash draining out of the public purse. Here's our business correspondent, Julian O'Neill.
The full financial catastrophe of RHI was becoming clearer within government in the summer of 2015. Cuts to lucrative payments were needed quickly.
The former Minister Jonathan Bell has stated previously that he wanted to reduce tariff rates from the 1st of October 2015. And departmental emails seen by the BBC indicate that this was the target date that civil servants were working towards. But word got out and poultry farmers were alarmed.
Some farmers had investments of up to £1 million at risk if tariff rates were changed before they could get planning permission for business expansions. This is Tom Forgrave. The North Antrim chicken farmer is on his union's poultry committee and also represents suppliers. In July 2015, he emailed officials at the Department of Enterprise, Trade and Investment. If the proposed tariff system is implemented before new sheds are passed by planning, cash flows will not match projections submitted to banks. We would ask for a period of grace to be put in place. Could the 1st of January 2016 be considered for the change? The response from an official was terse. I'm not buying this. The next day, at Mr Forgrave's request, the Ulster Farmers Union emailed DETI and called for consideration of a grace period to allow planning applications to get through. A DETI official emailed back, "The potential for a grace period is a difficult one, given that we are currently over budget and this position needs to be addressed urgently. That said, we are of course understanding of people who have already made commitments, and we will do what we can to assist those in this position so that they are not disadvantaged." The emails seen by the BBC end with the official stating the UFU would be kept informed, and it turned out it would be November the 17th, 2015, before rates changed. That's 7 weeks later than the target date contained in the emails, and Jonathan Bell has claimed the delay was due to the intervention of DUP special advisors.
The UFU issued a statement on behalf of itself and Tom Forgrave. In it they said they believed it would have been unfair to change tariff rates before farmers had completed their planned installations. They say they only ever dealt with civil servants and at no point had meetings with politicians or special advisors to discuss their concerns. Julian O'Neill, BBC Newsline, Belfast.
The police and paramedics were called to a school in Strabane this afternoon following a lunchtime altercation between pupils. Our reporter in the Northwest, Kieran Turish, has been to Holy Cross College.
This is the canteen in Holy Cross College in Strabane, and it's here where the drama happened just before lunchtime today. Shortly after 12:30, a fight broke out between two pupils in the corner of the canteen. There were 600 pupils here at the time. That fight was separated and the two boys were taken outside. But a short time later, their friends also got involved in an altercation. Around 6 pupils were involved. One parent says her 14-year-old daughter was very distressed.
She says everybody was scared, running, didn't know what to do, how to get away from the situation. And just very, very scary, and she doesn't want to go to school tomorrow. She broke out in a rash on her neck and her face, and I don't know if it's stress related. She was crying, and a lot of other students were crying also.
The principal of Holy Cross says the police were called as a precaution.
We decided to call on the PSNI in this instance because of the number of students that we had in the canteen and social area at that time and the potential that this situation had to escalate. So it was in a supportive role.
The police say one boy was arrested but later released into the care of his parents. Kieran Turish, BBC Newsline, Strabane.
Sport now, and in local football, Linfield won tonight's County Antrim Shield final. They beat Crusaders by 3-1. Stephen Watson was at the Ballymena Showgrounds.
The first final of the local season was a thrilling encounter between the two top current teams in the league. It was Linfield who dominated a pulsating first half, with Cameron Stewart heading them into the lead after just 3 minutes. And soon it was 2-0. Another corner bundled in, this time by Mark Stafford. Linfield were cruising. And soon things got even worse for Crusaders when Paul Heatley was sent off, a straight red card for a swinging arm. But the 10 men battled back brilliantly with a wonderful looping header from Jordan Owens. That made it 2-1 at half-time. In the second half, Linfield made their extra man count though. Andy Waterworth continued to trouble the Crusaders' defence, and his persistence forced a mistake. Penalty awarded, and Stephen Lowry on his 100th appearance slotted in the goal to secure a first trophy for Linfield since 2014 and a first for manager David Healy. These two teams will now do it all over again in the quarter-finals of the Irish Cup soon. Stephen Watson, BBC Newsline, Ballymena.
Now, it was a chilly day out there today. Is it likely to warm up for the rest of the week? Here's Cecilia's forecast for the next few days.
Hello, good evening. It's been a chilly day and it'll be a cold night across many parts of Northern Ireland. Still 1 or 2 showers around for a little while yet, but ending up dry with clearing skies. So temperatures falling to around freezing, maybe even just below in the countryside. So some frost around, maybe some ice where roads remain wet, and also some fog developing towards the end of the night. So it might be worth giving yourself some extra time in the morning because it will start cold and there'll be some fog, frost and ice in places. As that fog slowly lifts through the morning, it'll brighten up and we should have a reasonable day, drier and brighter in most places compared to today. Likewise across the Republic of Ireland, some pleasant sunshine coming through, a few showers mainly across the west coast. Many western areas of Britain may start cold and icy but will end up fine. But for central and eastern areas of both Scotland and England, it will be cold and cloudy with some patchy rain and even some snow over the hills. So better weather in the west. A lot of places across Northern Ireland will be dry and bright tomorrow afternoon with some sunshine, and it should look and feel a bit better than today. Another cold one on Wednesday night, some frost in places on Thursday morning. There'll also be a keen wind picking up on Thursday, which is going to make it feel very cold, and temperatures will be lower. So a colder day to come on Thursday, but mostly dry, although perhaps not just as bright, more cloud around. Lots of dry weather through Friday and indeed most of the weekend, but it will stay on the cold side. Quite cloudy initially, but hopefully brighter this weekend.
Well, that's all from us for now. Our next BBC Newsline bulletin is at 6:25 tomorrow morning during breakfast here on BBC One. You can keep updated with news online. Thanks for watching and good night.